Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. After listening to all of the incredible stories and the different performances tonight, and just witnessing the strength that is all in the room, I came with just one simple assignment. I wanted to spread hope on tonight. And I actually had a full circle moment sitting at table number 6. uh, Table number 6, I did not realize who I was sitting beside and, who I was talking to, because I am a talker. So I did not realize, who I was talking to or sitting beside. And I texted my husband and he said, "Babe, that's a full circle moment for you." And I said, "It sure is. So Lindsay mentioned earlier about Googling, but when I was diagnosed in 2007, Ask Jeeves was the search engine of choice. So that just, goes to show how long it's been. So I'm Tamron Little. I am a native of Charlotte, North Carolina. And thank you. Yes, yes. So you guys hear it in my voice, right? And I am a 19-year and counting peritoneal mesothelioma survivor. Thank you. Thank you. So just at 21 years old, I always say I was living my best life, or I thought I was living my best life in college. That's, where you meet your friends, your true friends that's going to follow you throughout life. And, I ended up pregnant, and make a long story short, they said that they found a fibroid tumor when I was 4 months pregnant. So at the time, I was scared that they were going to tell me I had twins or triplets or something like that, but it's just a fibroid tumor and you will be fine. But I wasn't fine, so I was technically pregnant with cancer. So in 2007, as you guys know, a lot of different treatment plans and things, and technology was not what it is today. But once I gave birth to my son, who is 19 years old today, yes. I was treated for the fibroid tumor with birth control. And when the fibroid tumor did not shrink, my doctor said, "Well, you know what? Let's just take this out. I really do think it's a fibroid and nothing's much. You're healthy. You're 21. What could it be?" And so I went in and came back and said, "Surgery went well," and he said, "You have cancer." And I remember that day like it was yesterday, because that's the day that my world became a tornado, and I was the eye of the storm. And if you guys are familiar with weather, you know that the eye of the storm is the calmest. Everything else is swirling around. So that's how I felt that day. And, it took me a while to really try to figure things out. And so at that time, I was referred to a oncologist in my town. And just by seeing him a couple of times, that's when the advocate within me really kicked in, because to be honest, I think he was just waiting for palliative care to. And I told him the last day I saw him, because he told me, "Well, there's no cure for it. We don't have any treatment available for it, and there's nothing that we can do." And so I told him, I stood up and I said, "Well, you know what? If you can't help me and you refuse to find someone who can, well, I'm going to find the help myself." And that's when I figured out what advocacy really was. And so I walked out the doctor's office, my mom and my husband still sitting there, and I looked behind me. I'm like, let's go. You know, they really thought I was crazy, you know, and I probably was. But I knew that I wanted to live, and I knew that I wanted to see my son grow up. And so my mom and my husband got on the phone and called Cancer Centers of America. I mean, they called everybody under the sun. But during that time, there were not a lot of specialists that specialize in peritoneal mesothelioma, and especially with someone that's young as me. I'm not the typical patient. And so a lot of, doctors said, okay, well, we're going to have to get all her medical records and all of that. And my mom's like, they just gave her 18 months to live. We need to see y'all like yesterday. So I have grown in my faith, and I always say that God has a ram in the bush, because right in my backyard, my mom worked at Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. Shout out to them. And she put me on her prayer list at work. And one of the nurses said, wait a minute, Janice, you must don't know who works here. And my mom's like, I know everybody. She's like, no. Dr. Edward Levine, okay? Like, he is one of the few specialists that really, specializes in HIPEC. I was in his office within 2 weeks. And he came in there with a smirk, and I said, that doctor is confident. I said, he is confident, and I love it, So when he told me that I was a great candidate, I said, okay, I want to sign the paperwork right now and get this going. He's like, you sure you don't want to think about it? I said, I had months to think about it. I've been praying for you, and now you're like right here in my face. Let's get it done. I really didn't think about too much with the surgery being almost 13 hours and, what would happen to me after the fact and the long recovery. I really wasn't thinking about that. I was just like, hey, I want to see my Caleb grow up. And I would do what it takes to do that. So I got the HIPEC, and my mom and my husband, they are jokesters, and so they're like, they tell people, when they would tell people, they're like, yeah, she got the shake and bake. So, and I'm like, okay, chicken, okay, whatever. Hey, so my story is a story of hope, and that's what I want to spread tonight, is hope, and to really pull everything together. And from hearing all the inspiring stories, and when people hear my story, even if you're in the early stages of your journey, if you are a caregiver, because my role was reversed as well. My husband was diagnosed a decade later with mucosal lymphoma. And so I just want to spread the hope and just leave you with one word tonight, and that will be, do it now. Don't wait to thrive, to start thriving, until after you have rung the bell. Don't wait to go get the help, the mental help that you need, until you've been finished with treatment. Don't wait to go to that support group. Don't wait to ask for help. Don't wait to let people help you until after everything is done and finished. I did that, and I don't recommend that. But I noticed one thing, and now I can put a word and a sentence to it, and it's called the gap. The gap is that space that survivors are in after treatment, and when they really go into survivorship and they feel like they're okay. I feel like I was dropped like a hot biscuit. Once like everything was finished, and they're like, wow, you are a miracle. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And, I go in for doctor's appointments and they prepare you for this and prepare you for that, but I was not prepared for the gap. I was not prepared for survivorship. So one thing that I do along with the Mesothelioma Center at asbestos.com is I talk about cancer survivorship and what you need to know during cancer survivorship. Take care of yourself. If you are listening to me right now, it is not too late, for you to go get the help that you need. This is something that we will always have to learn how to cope with. This is our new normal, and it's important for us to learn how to embrace that. Yes, you will grieve what you used to could do. I can't do some things that I used to do, and that's okay, because I am alive. And advocate for yourself. So don't wait to advocate for yourself. And don't take no for an answer, because if I would have taken no for an answer, I wouldn't have been standing in front of you right now tonight. And so even though that was 19 years ago, and Bo said that his wife is 2 after HIPEC, well, I'm here to tell you, Caleb is not my only child. So 3 years after I had Caleb, here comes Caden. 2 years after I had Caden, here comes Savannah. And 2 years after I had Savannah, here comes Sydney. I am living proof today that you can thrive during and after cancer. Thank you.